Hi everybody, Hassan Sharik, regulated Canadian immigration consultant, back with another video on Canadian immigration. My prayers and wishes that all of you, along with your families, are doing really well wherever in the world you are. Today's video is an important topic, and the topic is how to bring your parents to Canada if you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Now, this is an important topic because a lot of people who move to Canada as immigrants themselves have their parents living in a different part of the world, and then they want to invite them, spend time with them, maybe celebrate some family occasions. So they're looking for various options to reunite with their parents. If you are in a similar situation and are looking for this information, stay tuned till the end of the video as I'm going to talk about various options that are available to you. So, the options that are available to Canadian permanent residents and citizens in terms of inviting their parents over to Canada so that they can spend time with their parents, enjoy some family occasions and stuff, are three. I'll talk about each one of them one by one, but before moving ahead, I must state that this particular video only lists options which are specific to Canadian permanent residents and citizens. There are other people in Canada on various other statuses, such as work permit holders or study permit holders. All the options listed in this video are not applicable to them. So, moving on with the options available for Canadian PR and citizens in terms of inviting their parents, there are three such options available. Number one, they can invite their parents on a visitor visa. Number two, they can invite their parents to Canada through a super visa. And lastly, there is the option of applying for parents and grandparents, permanent residents under the parents and grandparents PR stream of Canada. So these are the three options, and now we'll have a look at each one of them one by one. For Canadian PR and citizens who are looking at inviting their parents over to Canada, the first and probably the easiest option is to apply for a visitor visa for their parents. Now, for most Canadian PRs and citizens who've recently immigrated to Canada, say in last few years, 4, 5, 6 years, in most cases, their parents are based outside of Canada in some other country. For a variety of reasons, they would want their parents to come to Canada and spend some time with them. The first option, as I mentioned, is to apply for a visitor visa. Now, this is a temporary visa where you can invite your parents to come stay with you for a short period of time, which is usually 6 months from the date of their arrival. So when they're granted the visa and they land in Canada, they can stay in Canada with you for up to 6 months from their date of arrival. In most cases, this visa is a multiple entry visa, and the validity of visa is usually based on the validity of your passport. So say for instance, somebody applies from some part of the world and their passport is valid for another 4 years. Once they're granted the visitor visa, it is valid for 4 years. They can enter Canada as many times as they want within this 4 years, and every time that they land in Canada, they can stay up to 6 months in one single entry. For this particular visa, there is not too much of a documentary evidence requirement. So basically, you have to prove your relationship with the individual or the individuals that you're inviting, your parents. You have to provide proof of your own status in Canada. You have to sort of provide the reasoning why the first time that they're coming to Canada, why are you expecting them to be in Canada? It could be that you have a child whose birthday probably you're celebrating, there's a family occasion, or they would just want to spend some time as it's been a few years that you've not spent that time. You are also expected to establish your own financial standing in terms of what you do in Canada. Maybe you do a job. If you're not doing your job yourself, your spouse is working, so you have to provide those details, all your assets that you have in Canada. And then it is not a requirement, but it is advisable that your parents who are coming from outside of Canada, they also show some sort of proof of their financial standing, as well as other family ties or economic ties that they have with their country of residence. So if they're working, they can show that they have a business or they have a job and they have assets, and the likelihood is that they'll visit you and then they'll return back to their home country. For this particular visa, keep in mind that the processing times can vary between country to country, but this is, as I said, probably the easiest option available to Canadian PR and citizens who are looking to invite their parents, for the reason that a visitor visa can easily be processed within a matter of few weeks. So you could easily have an outcome on a visitor visa within a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. If it takes a little too long, it might just be a month or so. So if you are looking at inviting them right away, probably this is the best option because the processing time will be quick. The downside is that they can only be in Canada for a maximum of 6 months and then they have to return back. Next up, we have the option of super visa. So like a visitor visa, this is again a temporary visa wherein the visitor who is coming to Canada is expected to return back after a certain time, and they cannot stay in Canada indefinitely. But super visa is specifically for parents of permanent residents and citizens of Canada. This visa, the validity of this visa can be for a period of 10 years. So whenever this is granted, this can be valid for up to 10 years. So the individual can travel for up to 10 years from the date of grant. So first difference between the super visa and the visitor visa. Visitor visa, it might just be a single entry, or it may even be dependent on the validity of your passport. If a passport is only valid for say 2 years, so it will be valid for 2 years, but super visa can be valid for up to 10 years. So first thing. Secondly, once your parents land in Canada, after that they have been granted a super visa, they can stay in Canada for up to 2 years from their date of arrival. So they don't have to, leave the country after 6 months of their arrival. Sometimes that becomes difficult, like if they're not healthy or traveling, they have to travel from a far away place. So such frequent traveling is not possible. So super visa is a good option if they are looking to stay in Canada for a slightly longer time period compared with a visitor visa. But for a visitor visa, there are certain requirements that one has to fulfill. I have actually made a detailed video on the requirements of super visa. You can find the link in the description or at the top of the screen. There will be a link, so you can have a look at that. In terms of super visa, you have to provide proof of your income in Canada from within last 12 months. Now this income has to be based on your family composition, the number of family members that you have in Canada, plus the people that you'll be inviting. So say for instance, if you're inviting your parents, both of them are alive and they're both being invited, so 2 of them, and if you're married and you have 2 kids, so it's you, your spouse, 2 kids, 4 people in Canada, 2 people being invited, and based on this family composition of 6 people, you have to meet certain income threshold within the last 12 months. And then you also have to obtain health insurance for them for their intended stay in Canada. So these are 2 very important requirements: the health insurance for them and the income requirement that are required for approval of super visa. So there is the option of staying for longer, but with that there are certain requirements associated with super visa, and the processing can take a few months. Lastly, the option of applying for permanent residence for your parents under the parents and grandparents PR stream. Now this is one of the most attractive, probably the most attractive out of the 3 options that I mentioned, but there are greater requirements attached to it. So first of all, this is not a temporary residence status. If your parents are granted the PR under the PGP stream, they become permanent residents like you. They can stay in Canada for as much as they want. They get to have all the facilities like their health facility and other stuff being taken care by the government. So just as you are a permanent resident or a citizen citizen yourself, they'll become a permanent resident. But because this is a program where one has to be granted the PR, so there are certain requirements. First of all, this particular program is only announced once a year, and there are certain specific spots. So every year, usually between 20 to 30,000 spots are allocated by the government of Canada for parents and grandparents PR stream, where eligible children or grandchildren can apply for the PR for their parents. Now, in terms of requirement, first of all, you as a sponsor are required to meet eligibility. The eligibility predominantly is based on your income. As I mentioned in the previous part of the video, where I calculated the family size, you have to calculate the family size similarly. And based on that family size, you have to provide proof of meeting the income for last 3 years through your notice of assessments. So in last 3 taxation years, you must have met income requirement in each year based on your family composition. The good thing for this particular program is that if you're not meeting the income requirement yourself, your spouse is working and earning, you can have them as a co-sponsor. So if both of you jointly are able to meet the income requirement, you can apply as a co-sponsor or as a co-signer as well. This particular program, again, the details for this particular program, I've actually made a video about this as well, so you can have a look at that. You'll be able to know a little more details about this. The way it works is that every year when this program is announced, individuals who are interested, first they submit an expression of interest to sponsor their parents. Depending on the number of expression of interest that are there, which is usually higher than, like, expression of interest are usually higher than the number available for that particular year. So the government would conduct a draw after all expression of interest are submitted. If they have, say, 30,000 spots and there are 40,000 applications, 30,000 applicants that are picked out of that draw are then invited to submit their formal application, where they submit an application for their parents' PR. The first step is to ascertain the eligibility for the sponsor. So your income will be assessed for last 3 years, all other documentation. Once that is approved, like your sponsorship claim is approved, then it is a PR application from your parents where they submit all the required documents like any other PR would submit, PR applicant would submit. Because this is a multi-staged process and this is a PR application process, so you would imagine that this takes longer. Right now, the average processing time for an application of parents' PR stands at about 2 years. So it takes about 2 years for such an application to be finalized. So definitely this takes more and more time. They're only able to come after their PR application has been processed. This is not an immediate solution, but the benefit is that then they will be able to stay in Canada permanently, and they'll enjoy all the benefits by the Canadian provincial and federal government as you yourself as a PR or a citizen can enjoy. So this sums up our video on the options available to Canadian PR and citizens for inviting their parents to Canada. I'll again round off with all the options that are available. First, there's the option of applying for a visitor visa. This is the quickest option, and not a lot of documents required. If your parents are only looking to come and visit you occasionally and maybe for short time periods, a great option to consider. If your parents want to stay for slightly longer, but they don't wish to stay in Canada permanently, then super visa is the other option that is available with you. You definitely have to provide proof of your income level within last 12 months. And lastly, if you are looking to bring in your parents permanently in Canada, and you have yourself been in Canada for a while and you're earning a steady income, then applying for the parents' PR under the parents and grandparents PR stream might be the option that you should consider. With this, I'll ask for a leave, and my prayers that wherever in the world you are, you stay well, take care of your families and yourself. I'll be back with another video on Canadian immigration. Take care. Allah Hafiz.